What's going on, guys? Today's video is around using .xls files in a Power BI report. Now, the issue is Power BI does not support file refreshes where the source has that file extension .xls. I believe the same goes for .doc, .ppt. It's got to be the newer version that has the X at the end. So, for example, .xlsx. Now, the problem is a lot of times for me, I've got Power Automate jobs where I'm automatically exporting, a data set or a report from a website such as QuickBooks. I've talked about this before. And then I feed that using Power Automate over into SharePoint. Well, QuickBooks only supports .xls distributions. It doesn't allow me to switch it automatically to have that .xlsx file extension. And so my problem becomes I can't refresh my Power BI report because the sources are .xls. So you would think Power Automate had like a built-in file converter. It doesn't. So what I have to do is lean on a third-party solution, which I've found to be extremely easy to use. It's called Plumsail Documents, I believe. I'll put a link to it below in the info, but it's very affordable, very easy to use, and it supports not only this .xls to .xlsx conversion, but it does a slew of other conversions. It even does it between file types like Excel to PDF and stuff like that. So go ahead and watch. I'm going to be walking through how to create the necessary Power Automate flows to accomplish the task at hand so that your report stays up to date and refreshed, and I hope that you find this useful. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, as you can see here on my screen, I've navigated to powerautomate.com. I'm in the Cloud Flows section of My Flows. You'll see 3 flows here. You can ignore the top one, but the bottom 2 are kind of working together to accomplish what we laid out in the intro to this video. So first, we've got the Save Email Financials attachment for Excel attachments. If I click over, this is what that one looks like. It's very simple, and I cover this to some degree in another video around Power Automate saving email attachments. In that video, I actually have kind of an redundant loop in the middle here. This is similar to like a loop or kind of iterator process function. I had something that was redundant in the middle, but anyways, so you basically have your trigger, which is when a new email arrives, and I've got some parameters defined in there around what the subject line looks like, if it contains an attachment, etc. And then what this basically does is for each attachment that it defines with that trigger, which is multiple in my case, that's why it has to have this for each loop, it creates a file, and then it just kind of goes one by one until a file is created for each. And the create file action, I define where in SharePoint I want that saved. And then this flow is complete. Now, next, kind of working in tandem with that flow, is the convert XLS to XLSX flow. I'm going to click over to that flow. So this is kind of what it looks like. So from top to bottom, we've got our trigger first. So in this instance, the trigger is when a file is created or modified, properties only. And this is the trigger that we need to use to work alongside that first trigger once a file is saved into a designated folder. For my process, I'm basically saving over files each day. So in this instance, it would be a modification, and that would be captured using this trigger. So if you look at this, you define a site address, a library, and then down in the advanced, you can specify a folder, which is exactly what I want to do. I don't want to look at the whole library. I want to specify a specific folder. So I define that there. And then you have to use this get files properties only action. Again, you define the site address, the library, and then down in the advanced or additional parameters, you type in this filter query exactly as you see it here. And I'll put this in the notes for this video. Capital F file underscore X0020 underscore capital T type space EQ for equals, and then you've got the quote XLS close quote, and that just basically is a generic file name, and we're saying that the type or the file extension equals XLS. Now, if you're doing this same process for, say, a doc to docx or PPT to PPTX, or even an XLSX to PDF, regardless of what it is, you'd always want to define the type there when you're getting the properties from the file. So once you complete this step, it goes into our loop, or the iterator function that takes each file that gets identified in the location that we specify in the trigger, and then it performs several actions. So when I click on for each, it's got this output from the previous steps, and it's just this automated body value that comes out of the get files property only step. And then once it takes this output, you define the get file content. And actually, to correct what I just said, the loop itself gets created once I establish or add that get file content action after the get files property only action. That's because the trigger and the get files property only action result in multiple outputs, meaning that once we start getting file content, converting file content, creating file content, it must iterate through the list that it creates, therefore establishing this for each loop. So that automatically gets established once I fill out the parameters in the get file content action. So if I click on that, again, we define our site address. In the file identifier, you can go into, if I clear this out, you can go into that little lightning bolt and type identifier. And under the get files property only, you'll click on identifier, because that's the previous step or action in the flow. And all this is automated down here. So I can click down. Now that we've got the file content, we can perform our conversion. Now this is the Plumsail documentation add-in to Power Automate, and it's available when you search it. So let's say I haven't created it yet. I'll just delete this step, and I'll click plus, add an action. I'm going to type in Plumsail, and you'll see this option for Plumsail documents. I'm going to click see more. And to the point I made at the beginning of this video, Plumsail documents can perform several other conversion functions or compression functions, or just different really powerful functions that might be useful in something that you're trying to accomplish. I'm going to come down here to, let's see, convert XLS to XLSX and click on that. Now here, I'm going to click on that lightning bolt. And for the get file content, I'm going to click file content, because that's the previous step in my loop here. And then down here for create file, I'm going to click on that. I can define the place or the site address and the folder path, the specific folder path that contains the specific area that I want that saved. Then down here in file name, you're going to, here, I'll start over here. You're going to choose the name from the get files property, okay? And then you're going to type in .xlsx so that it saves as part of the name. And then down here, I'm going to click the lightning bolt. Under get file content, I'm going to click on file content. Now I can click out of that, click save, and as you can see, it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and test it together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my SharePoint file, or folder path, excuse me, Jacob's files, and then we want to go into the XLS files. Now, if you remember in the flow, the trigger is when a file is created or modified, and this is the location where that occurs. So what I'm going to essentially do is I'm going to delete a file and then just re-upload it as an example, and that is going to be, that would fall under the create or modified aspect of that trigger. So let's go ahead and click test up here, and we'll click manually. And now it says to see it work, let's perform the starting action, which is create or update a file in that location. So I'm going to click upload files. All right, as you can see, I have uploaded a new file. So let's go back to our flow, and let's just kind of wait and see. The trigger has now occurred, so the flow will begin here shortly. All right, you can see that it started. The first two, the trigger and the first action have completed, and now it's starting to go through that iterator or loop function where it's going one by one for each file that it's identified above. And you can see that there's 5 because it has this option to click through and identify the status of the loop for each of the 5 files that it's recognized. And there you go. It says that your flow has ran successfully. We can actually confirm this by going to the folder where we've defined the create file to land. So let's go there. And as you can see, we've got 5 new files here that were created all within the last minute. Now, since these files are in the .xlsx file type, you can use these as sources in your Power BI report, and the service will actually recognize them as a viable source that they can refresh on a day-to-day basis. Hope that you found this super useful, and I will see you in the next video.